let's briefly talk about underwriting spreads. So let's say I'm a company and I want to go public, essentially raise money from investors, from individual investors on the market. So I would go to an investment bank, an underwriter like Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, UBS, etc. Right? So essentially and what they can do is they can do, what's called like a firm offering where they buy up all my shares and they take the risk, or they could do like a best efforts, which could be like an all or none, or a mini maxi underwriting. But let's focus specifically on the breakdowns of the different spreads out there. So the spread just refers to it would basically be just the difference between what the investor pays and what the issuer gets. So for example, if I'm ABC company and if the investor buys my bond for $1,000, then let's say the total spread would be the difference between the 1,000 and what I would get. So let's say if I get 960, right, that means the spread would be 40 because 1,000 minus 960 would be 40. So that means that the most amount that the underwriter can make would be 40, right? And usually underwriters are not alone. They form what's called a syndicate, which is just a group together, a group formed together to accomplish a specific purpose. Essentially, it sounds like sinister. People say drug syndicate, but that's just really, syndicate is just a simple definition. And let's say if Goldman Sachs is the syndicate manager, if they were to sell directly to the client, they would get all the components of the spread, and they would just get the entire spread, right? Now, Goldman Sachs, right, they are entitled automatically to the manager's fee, which is just, because they're managing the syndicate, they get a small fee. That's usually the smallest component of the spread. I don't know, let's call it like $5, right? Let's call it $5. So they would get that $5 no matter who sells the issue. Then you would have, let's say Morgan Stanley's part of the syndicate, plus others, but let's just say Morgan Stanley, they're part of the syndicate, right? If they were to sell direct to the client, they could get what's called the total takedown, which would just be the underwriting fee or the additional takedown plus the selling concession, plus the selling concession, which is just essentially the direct commission, which is the biggest part of the spread. So just by being part of the syndicate, they're entitled to what's called the additional takedown or the underwriting fee, right? So they would be entitled to that. Now, let's call that, I don't know, $10, right? Let's call that $10. So now we have 15 of the dollars accounted for. So the remaining 25, which would be the largest part of the proceeds, would be what's called the selling concession. So those are just the firms that are not really taking any risk, and they're very, very heavy. They're essentially just salespeople, right? All they do is they're looking to sell the issue, and all they can be entitled to is that $25, which is called the selling concession. So essentially, if you're part of the selling group, which is just people brought in to distribute distribute a security, but they're not taking any risk, that's all they can make as a selling concession, which would be like the $25. So just to kind of reiterate, selling group can only make the selling concession, kind of easy to remember, right? One of the syndicate, as long as you're in the syndicate, like Morgan Stanley, you can make what's called the selling concession plus the additional takedown or the underwriting fee, right? That's the most they can make, which is in other words called the total takedown. It's kind of confusing, the wording, but it's really, really easy if you really think about it. Total takedown is the most they can make, which would just be composed of the underwriting fee or the additional takedown and the selling concession, right? Now, the head honcho, right? The one in charge would be Goldman Sachs, right? The Goldman Sachs, they are entitled to the full spread. The full spread would entail the selling concession plus the additional takedown or the underwriting fee plus the manager's fee, right? Or you can say the total takedown plus the manager's fee. So hope that kind of makes sense. I know I kind of went that short. You could talk about underwriting for a really long time, but I just wanted to focus on that component because that's the part that a lot of people get tripped up on. So drop a like, please subscribe, and listen for more. Thank you so much.